We have brand new November Dynasty ADP over at dynastyleaguefootball.com, and to utilize the new data, I wanted to play a game of keep, trade, cut with 3 young quarterbacks making waves in fantasy right now: Tua Tagovailoa, Justin Fields, and Trevor Lawrence. So let's begin with what I think is the easiest one, and I'm cutting Trevor Lawrence. To put it plainly, he just hasn't been very good. He has improved since his rookie season, but that season was just so bad that it was almost impossible not to improve with a new head coach and a new wide receiver. Now, granted, he is the quarterback 12 right now in points per game, so he is a QB1 by fantasy standards, but when he's averaging only 16.5 points per game, and the top 8 guys are all over 20 points per game and up to 26, 27 points per game, like that's a sizable difference on a weekly basis, and he isn't scoring any differently than guys like Daniel Jones, Jared Goff, and Marcus Mariota. From a dynasty perspective, I'm really struggling to see how things get better for Lawrence in such a way that it drastically improves his value. In November ADP, he is valued as the QB12, but he's essentially the last young quarterback on the list there, as he is the divider between youthful upside and known veteran production like Kirk Cousins and Derek Carr. I don't think he'll ever get into the top 6 or 7 and enter that upper echelon of elite players like a Justin Herbert, Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson. Even jumping Kyler is difficult in my opinion right now. So then after that, the 4 guys ahead of him are Tua, Dak, Deshaun Watson, and Justin Fields. Clearly, based on this video, I'm taking Tua and Fields over Trevor Lawrence, but Dak and Watson are also easy choices too, as they both have done it at an elite level for multiple years. So how is Trevor Lawrence climbing over any of these guys to raise his value? I guess you could point to the fact that they just traded for Calvin Ridley to add to the team next year, and I'm also expecting them to add a receiver in the draft as well in 2023, possibly even in the first round like a Jackson Smith-Njigba or a Jordan Addison. Those players would greatly improve the receiving core that he has to throw to right now, but is it enough to compete with Tyreek and Jalen Waddle, CeeDee Lamb and Michael Gallup? Amari Cooper is clearly not washed either, and I'd expect the Browns to add someone too. I mean, I'll give you all Chicago. They really need help as well, but that's another team who could add another first-round wide receiver next year to pair with Darnell Mooney. So with all that being said, how does Lawrence gain dynasty value? Is it really out of the range of outcomes that Lawrence is just another Derek Carr, another Jared Goff? That's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just at his expectations and current price, it kind of is. I honestly wouldn't be surprised if either or both Bryce Young and CJ Stroud come in ranked ahead of Trevor Lawrence next offseason. So all of this boils down into Trevor Lawrence being my cut for this video. So now we get to the hard part. Keep one, trade one, Tua and Justin Fields. And I'll be honest, I really want both, but for the sake of this exercise, I'll be trading away Tua Tagovailoa. And if you follow this channel long enough, that may come as a surprise because Tua is my dude, and I actually predicted him to take a Joe Burrow-like step this season, but that's just where I stand right now for this video and exercise. Now, the easy cop-out answer for why he's my trade is because he's the highest valued of the 3 right now in November ADP, actually ranked as quarterback 8 ahead of Dak Prescott and Deshaun Watson. So if you're telling me that I can trade Tua for Dak plus or Deshaun Watson plus, I'm probably doing that. Or on the flip side, if I can add a small little something with Tua that can get me Lamar or maybe Justin Herbert right now with his struggles, I'm doing that too. But there are more reasons than just his current price that has me willing to move Tua right now. Number one, I don't think that he's ultra talented like Lamar, Herbert, Watson, all guys that I think are just naturally way more talented than Tua is. What Tua has over those guys, though, are weapons, arguably the best tandem of receivers in the league right now in Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. And that certainly helps out any quarterback when you're able to literally just throw a 5-yard dump pass off to one of them. They're able to add 40 yards onto that just on their own. But we've seen situations come and go. I mean, Patrick Mahomes lost Tyreek Hill all of a sudden, but because he's Patrick Mahomes, he's literally unfazed and is still averaging over 26 points per game in fantasy. Joe Burrow has gone through parts of this season without T. Higgins and now without Jamar Chase, but guess what? Still averaging 22 points per game. Lamar Jackson loses Hollywood Brown to a trade in the offseason. Rashad Bateman doesn't really play at all this year, out for the season with an injury. No Mark Andrews as of late, still doing Lamar Jackson things. If Tua were to lose either Tyreek or Jalen Waddle for a long period of time, would he still be producing like he is now? And the second reason I wouldn't mind selling Tua is he doesn't run. And for fantasy, we love our running quarterbacks. Now, that doesn't mean that if Tua doesn't run like Lamar Jackson, that he's not good for fantasy. Obviously, that's not the case. But it does mean that I don't want you to be a complete statue either, because on the season, Tua has 35 rushing yards through 10 weeks. 35 yards. That is less than Kirk Cousins and Derek Carr, barely ahead of Jared Goff and Jimmy Garoppolo. Dak Prescott has more rushing yards on basically a third of the games played. Like, come on, man, just do something. Run the ball. Do you want to know why every talented quarterback can still do well without very talented wide receivers for fantasy? It's because they run. Mahomes is over 200 yards and a touchdown. Lamar is Lamar Jackson. Burrow is at 140-4. The ability to run has been the Konami code for quarterback scoring for years, and as long as that doesn't change, quarterbacks like Tua will need to be reliant solely upon hyper efficiency through the air to be elite fantasy players. And even though that efficiency is there now for Tua, and I hope that it's still there for the next 3 to 5 years with Tyreek and with Jalen Waddle, it can be taken away so quickly by one injury or one offseason move that I just don't want to rely 100% on it every single year. So that's why Tua is my trade in this exercise. So then finally, that means that Justin Fields is my keep, and it's for a lot of the same reasons that Tua was my trade. It's just that Fields actually hits on what I'm looking for. Clearly, he's not immobile, and I actually do believe that Justin Fields is a very talented quarterback, and I think what he's done over the past month is all the proof you need to know that that's the case. And this is as much of him as a passer as he is a runner. Obviously, he's killing it on the ground with back-to-back games over 140 rushing yards and 80-plus rushing yards in 4 of his last 5. In fact, he's even 6th in the entire NFL right now in rushing yards, more than Dalvin Cook, Travis Etienne. He's barely behind Dameon Pierce, and he's probably going to break Lamar's rushing record of 1,200 rushing yards in a season. That is absolutely insane. So clearly, any quarterback with the upside of 1,000 or more rushing yards in a season is going to be a top 5 fantasy scorer. That's just how it works. Now, from a passing standpoint, he has elevated his game a lot over the past month to where now on the season, among all quarterbacks, he is 5th in touchdown percentage, 12th in yards per attempt, and 12th in total QBR. Those are amazing indicators for a young quarterback still learning how to succeed at the NFL level, and he's doing all of that on the Chicago Bears with Darnell Mooney and Cole Kmet as his top 2 options. So heading into 2023, I'm expecting the Bears to add to their wide receiver room to continue helping Fields grow in that department. Now, I know that hearing that giving a young mobile quarterback an elite receiver is probably like nails on a chalkboard to a lot of you out there with how much we hear it, but you give any quarterback an elite receiver and they're going to become better passers. After last offseason, it seems like almost nobody is safe from being traded, so I don't think it's unlikely that the Bears make a similar move to add to their wide receiver core via a big trade. What if they go get like DK Metcalf or T. Higgins or Chris Godwin? I don't know. The NFL is crazy now. These things can happen. Not to mention the Bears are also about to have over $100 million in cap space to play with too, plus a top 10 pick and a late second and early third to work with as well to add to this receiving room. This team is about to look drastically different between now and May of 2023, and Fields could be a huge winner from those changes. He's a quarterback 11 right now in November ADP, but I wouldn't be surprised to see him sitting as a borderline top 5 QB in the spring ahead of guys like Tua, Dak, Deshaun Watson, possibly even Kyler Murray at this point. If you can, go trade for Fields right now. What might be an overpay today might not be an overpay in 4 months. I'd go send 2 firsts in Superflex, pivoting off of Tua, Dak, Kyler, maybe to Fields plus or just straight to Fields. Add a late first to Trevor Lawrence. Add any first to Kirk Cousins, Derek Carr, or Kenny Pickett if you can get that done. Just go buy high on Fields now while you still can. If you're looking for more players to buy and sell right now, especially before those trade deadlines and before the fantasy playoffs, check out these 2 videos right here on running backs or wide receivers.